I said after I put out my top 10 players ranking video that the top 10 series would be coming to an end, but I lied. So many of you left comments saying you wanted more, with there being so many topics and categories left to rank, so here we are bringing it back. They'll be sporadically released over time, but for today's video, the category of players we'll be ranking is the players that impact the defensive side of the ball the most. This is one of the more difficult categories to make a ranking of and judge because there really aren't many reliable defensive metrics and statistics that actually demonstrate how good of a defender a player is, and a lot of it comes down to taking what data is available into consideration in addition to the eye test and how they perform in big moments. Before we get started though, it turns out about 76% of you watching aren't even subscribed to the channel, so please, if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, because not only does it greatly help out, but I would also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. Before we get into the top 10, I wanted to first discuss some honorable mentions that just missed the cut, and the players that fall into this category are Jonathan Isaac, Patrick Beverley, Jrue Holiday, and Robert Covington. Isaac is the one player that I'm certain will shoot up this list in the very near future, because this past season, he was dominating that side of the ball in so many different ways. The only problem was that he got injured, so the sample size of doing so made it tough for me to put him over players that have shown more. Beverley and Holiday are two of the very best perimeter defenders in the league, but both had somewhat down years and come up just short at the moment. As for Covington, he really is a jack-of-all-trades defensive player who can genuinely hold his own against almost any position. He causes havoc with his long arms by getting deflections at a near league-leading rate every season, and his versatility helped the Rockets run lineups without any true big men in it. And now, to start at the bottom of the list and work our way up to the number 1 spot, we have PJ Tucker of the Houston Rockets. The Rockets ran a system this year that raised the eyebrows of pretty much everybody that even remotely follows the sport, being that they completely abandoned big men in their rotation. Naturally, you would worry about rim protection, rebounding, and overall interior defense when you make a move like this, but Tucker took over that center position and all 6'5" of him battled night in and night out to make sure that the Rockets defense stayed strong, and he did a damn good job of it. The fact that he's never made an all-defense team, despite being one of the hardest workers on that end every year, is a travesty, and he really does deserve more respect for how good he is as a defender. Next up at number 9, we have Brook Lopez of the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis Antetokounmpo gets a ton of the credit for how dominant the Bucks were on both ends of the floor for most of last year, and as a result, he was rewarded with both the MVP award and Defensive Player of the Year award. But Lopez's contributions to their stellar defense absolutely cannot go overlooked. Only 4 players in the NBA contested more shots around the basket than Lopez did last year, and he held those players to shooting about 44% in that range, which ranked 3rd best in the NBA in that range, demonstrating that he gets tested very often and time again alters the opposing shots. He also blocked 2.4 shots per game, which was the 2nd best average in the NBA this season, and all of this helped Milwaukee have one of the most historically great regular season defenses ever. Next up at number 8, we have Joel Embiid of the Philadelphia 76ers. Ever since Embiid began his NBA career, he's been one of the most impactful defensive players year in and year out, pretty much always ranking near the top of the league in defensive rating, blocking a ton of shots, and stifling opponents at the rim, ranking amongst the best in the category of opponent field goal percentage. He's finished in the runner-up spot of Defensive Player of the Year once already in his career. He's been named to the All-Defensive Team twice, and the advanced analytics over the years show that the Sixers are always head and shoulders better as a defensive unit with him out there. In fact, during the 2019 playoffs, Embiid finished with a top 5 plus-minus, demonstrating that with him on the court, the Sixers outscored opponents by more points than most players on teams that advanced further in the playoffs than the Sixers did. He had a down year this year, but if he gets back in form next season, he could definitely move further up this list. Next up at number 7, we have Marcus Smart of the Boston Celtics. Smart's one of the biggest pests in the entire league, and even though he definitely bends the rules and flops egregiously every now and then, he's undeniably one of the best and most important defensive players in the NBA. His defense is one of the biggest driving forces of the Celtics, and he's at the heart of a lot of what they do. He doesn't back down from any challenge, and no matter who he's guarding, he makes life difficult for them. Plus, he seems to always come up with a big play when the Celtics need him to, which is something that you can't really track in the stat sheet, yet anyone that watches the Celtics knows it's the truth. He hustles every second of the game, he's disruptive, and he's firmly a part of this list. Next up at number 6, we have Rudy Gobert of the Utah Jazz. This is definitely going to seem low for a player that has won 2 of the last 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards, but while his regular season impact is always undeniably elite, it really hasn't ever translated to the postseason, which is something that we simply cannot ignore. Every single metric and analytic loves Gobert, and in the regular season, his impact is without a doubt near the top of the NBA, but in the playoffs, we've seen him get taken advantage of time and time again, and it comes down to his inability to hold his own with opponents outside of the paint. He's a rim protector through and through, but when he's tasked with guarding someone that brings him out of the paint, he's been abused twice by the Houston Rockets before this season, and this season by the Nuggets that were led by Nikola Jokic, who is a big man that plays both inside and out. He's still a really great defender easily, but playoff struggles hurt his ranking. Up next at number 5, we have Bam Adebayo of the Miami Heat. Bam had one of the biggest emergences in the entire league last season, and he did it on both ends of the floor. Defensively, he was at the center of a lot of what made Miami so good, and he's by no means a traditional big defender that protects the rim. Yes, he's definitely a very good rim protector, but what elevates him to the elite tier for me is the fact that he can seamlessly switch onto players at almost any position of any size, and because of his terrific lateral quickness, reflexes, and instincts, he can shut them down. Versatility is the name of the game nowadays, and Bam represents everything teams want from someone his size here. If he keeps it up, he has a chance to be the best defensive player in the game one day, but for now, he's in the top 5. Next up at number 4, we have Ben Simmons of the Philadelphia 76ers. Ben's a player who was always good on defense in his career, but this year he turned things up a notch and made his mark at an absolutely elite rate. When you think of a lockdown defender, you usually think of a guy who, no matter what, is defending the opposing team's best player, and Ben Simmons is exactly that this season. No player in the entire NBA spent more time defending number 1 options, number 2 options, and all-star talent, regardless of position. So when discussing versatility, Ben Simmons is the perfect representation of that. He has the size and strength of a big, but the speed and agility of a guard, and he uses this to easily defend any player he's assigned to, regardless of position. He led the league in steals, he led the league in deflections, and in every sense of the word, he is a lockdown defender. Up next at number 3 is Kawhi Leonard of the Los Angeles Clippers. Kawhi's reputation early on in his career was as one of, if not the very best defender in the NBA, and as his offensive game has expanded, he's become more of a scorer, but he hasn't necessarily been tasked with as much on the defensive end as a result. But when the time comes for him to lock up on defense, he's still very much one of the best defenders in the league that he has to offer. He earned the nickname The Claw because of how much he would pester opponents with his big hands and long arms, poking balls away and causing havoc for ball handlers. He's a 2-time winner of the Defensive Player of the Year award, and this may seem like a reputation pick, but for me, he's still a top 3 defender. Up next at number 2, we have Giannis Antetokounmpo of the Milwaukee Bucks. Giannis is a special talent who impacts both ends of the floor at an elite level, and he was this season's Defensive Player of the Year. He has terrific instincts as a help defender blocking shots. He too has the ability to defend almost any position comfortably, and most importantly, he was the best defender on the number 1 defense in the league this season. The reason I don't have him at number 1 though is that despite him winning winning the Defensive Player of the Year award, I actually leaned in favor of the guy that I have at number 1 for the award, and in the playoffs, this notion was solidified for me, especially after that notorious Game 1 where he shied away from defending Jimmy Butler. Absolutely special talent, but comes up just short of number 1. And now, at number 1 on this list of the best defenders in the NBA, we have Anthony Davis of the Los Angeles Lakers. The Lakers' success was built around their defense, leading them all the way to a championship victory, and Davis was at the center of it all, protecting the rim at an elite level. Many believe he should have won the Defensive Player of the Year award, and for good reason, but I suppose a ring will suffice instead. He made players shoot over 8% worse when he guarded them from the floor, and over 11% worse when he defended their shots at the rim, and on top of it all, he too succeeds at switching out on the perimeter and holding his own when needed to. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below how you would rank the best defenders in the league today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.